Alright, so Monday Night Raw happened. I'm not doing a recap of it per se, but they did throw out things that I wanted to, that I was like, oh, this is probably be good just to talk about instead of just talking about the recap. Um, but I was like, I will say, one, the crowd stank. I was like, there wasn't really no energy really, except for like two times during the whole thing. So other than that, I was like, I just had to get that out of the way because they really did throw off a lot of like certain moments and matches and time, like the beginning segment with McIntyre and Cody. But I was like, one, rtruth also, that dude knows how to make anything funny in a way that's really hard to do. Like, and maybe that because the rest of the setting of the wrestling is serious, sometimes a little bit too serious, and I mean, not that's too serious, but that everybody it's just sort of weird. I'm like, dude, none of y'all have fun. Dude, none. I was like, I'm like, it's like, yeah, we're getting character development, but all y'all pretty much are basically like, all y'all really are anti-hero. That's another stuff. But rtruth with the shirts, selling them, giving them money and his cut to Judgment Day. When Judgment Day comes out, he's in the background. I was like, then giving each cut to Finn and Dom, and then being like, no, JD, that was hilarious. That's funny. I'm wondering. I was like, wondering how long this necessarily can go. I was like, I'm fine. I was like, but I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're not. You can't take Jimmy D seriously. And I'm like, it's so weird that I'm like, any other time you can take anybody else seriously, but once you start just being funny, all of a sudden you can't. You're like, I can't take the guy seriously. Like I'm like, you can't be a serious person or do things while being funny. I'm like, that doesn't stop him from wrestling a match. That doesn't stop him from being like. I was like, I don't know. I never understand that, Chris. And that's another thing for another time. But also, him fighting each member of Judgment Day while also being like sorry to the point that Damien had to be like, I gotta take you out, bro, and took him out. Which rtruth would just roll that. He like, I understand. Maybe I was like, I was doing too much, and then because I didn't give JD his cut, it's going to be something like that. So I just want to give rtruth his prop because that's funny, and Judgment Day is funny with that juncture with everything. Um, Also too, I was like, Xavier Woods fighting Ludwig Kaiser, and basically getting his revenge for his buddy Kofi, doing that whole thing just, and then having and then like getting back beat, he got beat backstage. And then Jay sort of stepped there, so that made everybody ponder like, oh, is Jay gonna be the one to dethrone Gunther? Now, I want to make the point that I was like, it's weird that about like 2-3 weeks ago we had when CM Punk sort of made one of his returns back. I think it was like maybe the second one. He ran to Kofi. They had a little like interaction. That then I was like, Pierce was basically like, oh, let's talk about the Intercontinental Championship thing. Nothing came about. Nothing came about that, and Kofi just in the win, and then he just sort of been doing this. I was like, I'm glad. I guess they put him in the program, but then Xavier Woods gets into it, and then they're just like, oh, this is gonna be a tag match. This is gonna be a cool tag match once, uh, they come back together. And I'm like, and then Jay shows up to help him. So I'm like, why didn't Kofi get a chance against Gunther? Like we know how they're gonna win, but I'm like he should still get a shot. I'm like, give Gunther another opponent, former WWE champion. You can play that into it of when they talk about him ascending to that next level later on. I think Xavier Woods did have a match against Gunther or whatever, but I'm just thinking, I'm like, why neither one of them has gotten any shot at this or whatever. Really, I was like, that is odd how they just dropped that and then they immediately just like tag team, you know. So I was like, it is weird. I'm kind of like Kofi normally is the one they throw in there, and they haven't thrown him in there. Where they're going to be like my other point with somebody in a minute. But Jay, I was like, I do get Jay. I was like, he had a chance for the heavyweight championship that we knew he wasn't even going to get close to winning. But he had that match. He was in there. He sort of had like an up and down gear, which I mean, he sort of should because the way he was coming off the bloodline stuff. But in saying that, I was like, okay, should he dethrone Gunther? Maybe. I could like it, say, if he fought Gunther at Elimination Chamber. He beats Gunther there. And if they do decide to do it, they can have Jimmy, Jay, the IC title. It doesn't matter that they're not on separate shows. It's WrestleMania. Who cares? They could do that. But I'm like, but Jay, you built to somebody that can have a title, where Jimmy, you haven't done that. So maybe it really won't matter. Or it might be Gunther, Jay, Elimination Chamber, and Jimmy costing the loss. If that's that plan on WrestleMania. If it's not that plan on WrestleMania, I don't see why he shouldn't dethrone Gunther. I was like, you sort of now have to start giving Jay his thing. You're going to sort of have to start having him be main event. He didn't get the tag team title long enough without, like with Cody, without his brother. He's only been in one title match. So I'm like, you can't. I was like, the way that you built him and the way he's main eventing, I was like, yeah, no, he should basically have a match against Gunther. That's what you should do. And I'd be down for it. It'd be good, and I think it'd do well for him as well too. I mean, if you want to build him up in something, like we do this with all the tag teams at some point. Jeff Hardy and Matt, I was like, when they broke up, you had to start giving one of them a single run in order to push them to that main event status. Jeyuso. So you got to give them that. Edge and Christian, same thing. So go ahead, let them dethrone Gunther. Especially because I was like, out of everybody else, I don't know who there could be that you could have to dethrone Gunther. He's sort of your best shot right now, because there's nobody else that either hadn't already faced him and lost, or is built in any way to really beat him. If there ain't gonna be no like call up, which is, you can't have a call up beat Gunther. Like, yes, you want somebody to get the rub of beating Gunther, but you don't want it to be someone brand new. So, which sort of brings up, there's another small part of. So Ivar fought Akira Tozawa. Whatever. He gonna fight Chad Gable. All right, cool. How was Ivar, who's been doing really well, single competition? He was winning quite a bit. He was looking like a monster. I was like, then all of a sudden, he just sort of just been like, man, he's still being a monster. But I was like, how was he this close to having a title shot against Gunther? And now he's nowhere around it. I'm like, you should do that match at some point, right? Whether you want to have Jay win or not, Ivar, you would think would be in that place. I'm just saying, it's just a really weird thing of just like what happened and dropped. I don't know. But I was like, and last of the things is, I think that Jinder should have won. Now, in saying that, I hear what everybody's going to say where it's the Jinder part. But, one, the match, I was like, I'll say this. The match itself was good. The story of the match was great. Because I was like, at first I was like, it's sort of weird that I will say that Jinder doesn't have the fluidity that Seth has, considering that they both was on NXT, could have won the championship kind of thing. I was like, Jinder does fight a little stiff. He also sort of fights in a way that's like what McMahon liked than what's going on now, which makes me think like he changed, maybe he changed his wrestling style or whatever. But anyway, you could tell it was little, like it just wasn't fluid. It wasn't clunky, but it just seemed like there was friction in there as things happening. But in saying that, the match still had its beats, but I thought it didn't really start doing anything until, one, I was like, the Seth injury, which I think played a part in it, and Damian Priest coming out for the briefcase. Now, I was like the Seth part of it with the injury. I do feel like there was some parts of it that got sped up, and it should, but it's also with the time of the match where it was like, oh, they start out slow, like holds, submission holds, that kind of thing, building up to like the crescendo of the match. But they sort of do that with, especially with a little bit of self matches. But then it sped up really, really well, and I thought that maybe they were like, okay, he actually hurt. We sort of just got to start doing our beats a little bit faster, kind of thing. But then it started hitting like that. And also, too, that when he won the championship, they immediately had the little logo up, and they basically shut the show off. Normally, you still got a chance to see him. You got a chance to see, like, how Jinder looks, how, like, the crowd, him basking in the stuff. But they didn't do that, so that's what made me think that the injury is serious. But when Damien comes out, I like this way they did it. It wasn't flustered. It wasn't Damien trying to rush or do anything. He basically came out, sat, and basically just let it be known, hey, once that, I was like, however this goes, I'm going to cash this briefcase in. And I was like, this is a lot better than the last few ways they've been doing it. Maybe they'll say something about it in the next Raw in the story. But then Drew comes out, they got beef, and they just started fighting. And they just started taking off on the side, and they get out of here kind of thing, even though they were already going that way. But in that moment, Jinder did a low blow, and everybody was like, "Oh!" And then next thing you know, I was like, then he hit this finishing move, and that's when the crowd actually picked up. That's where you had the sense that everybody was like, "No, no, 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 no." You even heard like Cole being like, "This is how he won last time," and then it was like 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and then he's like, and one also too. I like Indashir was there, which I thought was really smart for Jinder and how they did everything else. That he need to have his heel, they need to have some type of ambiguity to this whole thing. Because then after that happens, I was like, it gets distracted again. I was like, Seth, puts him in a pedigree, that whole thing kicks out. I was like, the ref gets distracted. Boom, the briefcase. I was like, so at that moment again, you just hear the crowd like, oh my God, they're going to do it. They're going to do it. And then I was like, basically got Seth again and kicked out. And I was like, oh God. So I was like, I thought that way of playing with it of like, they wouldn't, like, we know that Jinder wasn't going to win, but the way they made it seem like he could win with these with these acts, I thought was good placement. And I think and you felt it from the crowd, so imagine we had a better crowd. And then that's when I also think the injury played in it, because Indashir just basically got tossed out. But like not too long after that, then Jinder got set up basically for a curb stop, and it's over right there. And you can see Indashir still halfway through going up the ramp. So that makes me think like there was more to this match that should have happened. But Jinder should have won. In saying that, to me, that would have been the best way to have Damian Priest cash in his briefcase, to where the fans and everybody watching would have been okay with it. And because now I was like, if Damian Priest, I was like, he ain't gonna win against Roman. Everybody would like that, but he's not gonna be able to do it against Roman. Seth, I was like, everybody wants to see him punk Seth match so much that that's not when it's gonna happen. So if it doesn't, then win, kind of thing. And yes, there might be a future spot, there might be a better timing, there might be an actual better plan. But I'm saying in this moment, I was like the best way where everybody can get behind Damien. And I know they didn't know what's going to happen, but Seth's injury, we don't know the extent of it. But if it's bad, or like in a way, then it's like that would have been good. With also being the one person that everybody's like, oh my God, he won the title. Nobody really wanted Jinder to have the title, so therefore he would have looked so great. It would have looked like perfect timing. It would have, that whole thing. I think that would have been the best time for it all to happen. But hey, they got a bigger picture. I don't know what that is. We'll have to wait and see. But I just think that would have been a good way for the Damien Priest stuff or whatever with whatever might be of the Seth Rollins injury at this point, just because. And it's like it sort of sucks because it's so close to WrestleMania that you kind of don't know how this whole thing with Seth's going to be, but you have to imagine that he's not going to do Royal Rumble. And I was like, nor should he really have to because of they got enough matches on there to do it. So I think him missing this one will be fine. Maybe be back for elimination chamber, the leading up to it. But anyway, that's just my thoughts. Not necessarily on Raw, but the thing that came out of Raw more so. I was like, that, yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. Anyway, do you think that Damien beating Jinder would have been a successful cash-in instead of what we're still doing now? Not Jinder necessarily winning, but that whole thing. And also, too, do you think that Jay's going to be the one to do the throne Gunther? Let me know. Anyway, that's just my little whole thoughts on it. Let me know what you think. Until then, see you for the next WWE topic.